everyone, this is Fadi from Jamjar Canteen. Thank you for joining us today for our very first video cooking demo. We tried to put together some live ones last year, and unfortunately the timing was not perfect. The first episode was planted for April of last year, which we had to cancel. And since then, we've been like everybody else, trying to figure it out and make the best out of this situation. We decided to put these cooking demonstrations together as a means of thanks for you, our customers, for the support that you've given us in the past year, and hopefully give you the tools that you need to create delicious Lebanese food at home. So today's recipe is called Fasoulia Arida. Fasoulia means bean, and Arida translates to broad. And this is by far one of the most favorite recipes growing up at home. It's in cold winter days like this. It's hearty, it's comforting, and it's wholesome. And the best thing is, it's pretty easy to put together. Very few ingredients. All you need is 10 minutes of prep time and a little bit of cook time, around 45 minutes, but I think we can all afford that kind of timing these days. Here are all the ingredients you're going to need to make Fasoulia Arida. We're going to start with beef cubes. And so beef chuck, you can omit this if you're going vegetarian or vegan. I would recommend just dicing up some celery instead and starting off with that. And we'll get to that in the process when we get to make it. You're going to need half a bunch of cilantro, roughly chopped, 1 can of whole tomatoes, that's blitzed. You can definitely substitute this with diced tomatoes. You can either do 6 overripe tomatoes, but you're going to need to blanch and take the skin off of those. You're going to need 2 teaspoons of salt, 6 cloves of fresh garlic, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. You can omit that as well if you want to. Some cooking vegetable oil. Here I'm using 2 tablespoons. 1 cup of large Lima beans, 1 cup of short grain rice, and 70 grams of vermicelli. So now that you have all your ingredients lined up, we're going to start off by setting the temperature at medium heat. Add the oil in a medium-sized pot and start by cooking off the beef. So you want to get them all nice and seared and make sure that it's browned on the outside. So again, if you're doing a vegan or vegetarian version, I would dice some celery and use olive oil and apply the same process. Make sure you get a nice coating on the celery and sear it a little bit and get some color. Now that our meat is seared, we're going to add 2 cups of water and we're going to let it simmer a little bit. What you're going to notice is you're going to start seeing fat and foam rise to the top, so you want to remove that. So we're going to take off the skimming that come on top. You can use a sieve, you can use a small spoon, and I'm just going to take that and throw it away. So now that all the fat has been removed, I'm going to let this simmer on another burner for 15 or so minutes, and we're going to move to sauteing the garlic and cilantro. So with that, you can use a different skillet or pan and just add a little bit of olive oil or vegetable oil. So we're going to add the garlic first, and if you've noticed, we didn't really crush it too fine. You want to keep some big chunks in there, and you want to get it nice and golden color. One interesting thing about this recipe is once you've learned the concept of this recipe, you essentially can make at least 5 other stews with the same method. You would just substitute beans for any other legume or a vegetable. This recipe goes really well with green peas as opposed to broad beans. If you want, you can easily use French green beans for this recipe and it'll work equally well. And now that I'm getting a little bit of color for the garlic and it's getting a little bit fragrant, I don't want to overcook them. I'm just going to add the cilantro. And you want them to half wilt, essentially. You don't want to cook it all the way or overcook it as well, because really all the flavor is just going to be added to the stew later on. So that's probably enough. And we're going to set this aside. We're going to bring our beef that's been stewing back, and we're going to add a tomato can that we blitzed earlier. And we're going to add some salt. And finally, the mixture of garlic and cilantro that we just cooked. And at this stage, if you feel like making your stew a little bit thicker, you can add some tomato paste. And finally, we're going to add the beans that have been soaking overnight. So look how big they get after you've soaked them overnight. And you stir that all in. And we're going to bring this mixture to a boil. And once it's boiled, we're going to simmer it for roughly 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, so now our stew is boiling. We're gonna bring it down to simmer and cook it down for roughly 45 minutes, an hour. And now we can start making our vermicelli rice. So vermicelli rice is one of those Middle Eastern style rices that is served with pretty much every stew that is made in Lebanon. We start off, it's very similar, it's made similar to regular rice, except the first step is cooking the vermicelli. We're going to start off by heating some vegetable oil. So we're going to add our vermicelli, and we want to cook that down. You want to keep an eye on this and keep stirring. You don't want to overcook it. You want to get a nice golden brown color out of it before you add the rice. So once the vermicelli is nice and golden, then you can add the rice and the salt and coat the rice a little bit with the oil here. So you can probably see now from the contrast of the colors how the color should come out. I'm gonna add my salt now. 1 teaspoon of salt for 1 cup of cooked rice. Once everything's all stirred in, now we can finally add the water. So for 1 cup of short grain rice with vermicelli, I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of water. Since all of that is stirred in, you just bring it to a boil, then turn the temperature down and let it simmer for 15 minutes. So our vermicelli rice is now nice and ready. This is what you're looking for. Again, you can adjust the amount of vermicelli you have. I think we're 10 minutes away from having our stew ready as well, so we should be able to have lunch soon. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We hope you've learned something new and you're able to cook delicious Lebanese stews in your home from now on. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at info@jam-jar.ca. You'll also be able to see future episodes on our website. That's jamjarcanteen.ca. Have a lovely rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you again.